want to share with you probably the best known of all the Psalms. And if you want to, you are invited to sing along with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. Thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'd like to invite Barry to come up and share some words with you about his dad.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to try to muscle through this. Put down a few thoughts about my dad. First off, thanks for everybody coming here today. I appreciate that very much. I want to thank the people of Friendship Village. You really took good care of my dad the last 6 months, really the last 3 years. But I was going to say I want to especially thank my Aunt Mary and Aunt Edie for taking time out from their tour of Pittsburgh last night to come to our house. We had a really nice party. I hated to mess up their tour. They were only gone for an hour and a half, heading from here to my house. It was about a 10-minute drive, actually. Anyways, my dad was known to everybody here differently as a father, a grandfather, an uncle, a brother, brother-in-law, friend, neighbor. It's interesting over the years, had a lot of different nicknames, you know, and I enjoyed how people would mess up his name. It was Berendt, which seemed pretty easy for me to say, but almost everybody I ever met called him Burnt. Or Bernard, Bernie. In college, his nickname was Scorch. I called him the Big O, just like my Uncle Mike is a Big O. And a lot of my buddies call me the Big O. But a lot of people call him just Mr. Olson. I think they couldn't say Barrett, so they said Mr. Olson. And that would include all my neighbors, even guys that were 60 years old. Hi, Mr. Olson. He would never tell them, no, my name's Barrett. They just let him call him Mr. Olson. So if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I want to share a few thoughts on my dad and some stories. After this, we're going to have a luncheon over here at South Hills, and I think it'll be a lot lighter. At least I intend it to be. I told Cindy I woke up about the last 3 nights thinking of funny stories to share. I'm up to about 19. I'll try to keep it. I'll prioritize the best ones. Anyways, and a lot of this I think most of you already know, but for my kids and nephews and nieces, my dad was the grandson of Swedish immigrants, second generation. Axel and Caroline Olofsson was their name. They got to Boston, they changed it to Olson with 2 S's. And he was the son of Carl and Edith Olson. He was born into a coal mining community in Sullivan, Indiana, one of 12 kids. You guys have seen many of his brothers and sisters here today. He was 4th in line, born January 4th, 1937. Had 3 brothers and 8 sisters. In line, I'm probably going to screw this up, Mary, every time I get you mixed up. You got Danny, Patty, Marlene, Dad, Marilyn, who died 50 years ago in a car accident, God rest her soul. And you got Bill and Mary, Linda, then Mary. Linda, then Mary. We got Carla, Letha, Mike, and Edie. Did I get everybody? That's tough, 12 kids. Some interesting facts. I'm going to get my glasses out here. I'm not as young as I used to be. Interesting facts about Dad's childhood. I think these are just fascinating. Born January 4th, 1937. there was no hospital birth for Dad. Mary Blue, the neighborhood midwife, delivered Dad in the back room of the house, just like most of the other Olsen kids, just a midwife. They had no indoor plumbing for Dad all the way through high school. And in one of the houses they lived in, they had no indoor plumbing or electricity. So I'd like my kids to think about that as they're brushing their hair this morning and going to the bathroom indoors. Pretty rough. At least, let me see, Saturday nights were for baths behind the stove. Oldest to youngest. Good luck to Edie and Mike.
They weren't here yet.
Dad said as a teenager, he and Danny would get their baths in the local stripper pit pond with homemade soap. And in the wintertime it was too cold, they'd get a ride to the Little Betty Mine and ask for permission to get a shower at the coal mine. To go on their super duper dates that they used to brag about. All the Olsons lived on a little small farm, complete with a milking cow or two. They had hogs, they had calves, an acre or more garden, 165 laying hens, according to Danny, putting out eggs every day. A lot of hard work. Heard a lot of stories about chasing cows in the morning with a big bell on to milk the cows so they could eat. A lot of canning of peaches and everything else. Just a tough lifestyle. The boys and their uncles hunted birds and rabbits and squirrels and turkeys and fished and trapped fur-bearing animals like minks and raccoons for cash. And pretty interesting story from my Uncle Dan that one summer he and my Uncle John A. and Dad went trapping and hunting minks, and at that time they got $1,000 worth of minks in one winter, which would be like $15,000 here today. It was a lot of money, and it put Danny, I think, through his first year of college, put Dad through his first year of college, and my John and Uncle John, he gave his portion, his third, to Danny so he could go to school, I think 2 years rather than just one. Everyone slept two to three people to a bed all the way through high school. And Dad and Dan slept in some place called the catch-all. I'm sure my aunts and uncles would know the catch-all, which was at least far enough away from the heat that in the morning they had a wash basin, they had water in it, and most mornings in the winter he said they'd have to snap the ice to get through the water. And so pretty rough living, but tough times by today's standards, but I really never heard my dad or any of my aunts and uncles ever complain that it was tough at all. They always made it sound like such an adventure to me. One of Dad's favorite sayings was, we may not have a lot of money, but we were rich in family values. And I think that's really true. Kind of going to go in chronological order. Dad went on to Duggar High School. He was one of 32 kids in his class, which is interesting. So I look at his high school yearbook. He was a four-year starter in football, 4-year starter in basketball. You know, we only have 3 other boys to compete against. That's a big deal. So, anyways, he was in the chorus. He was the president of the class, and he must have been awful smart because he left home and he went to Rose Polytechnical Institute, which is now Rose Holman, which is one of the most prestigious engineering schools in the country. And matter of fact, my cousin Lisa is the dean of admissions there. And while he was there, he studied engineering. He met my mom, and he went over to Indiana State Teachers College looking for dates, and he found one. He got out of school and took his first job with General Electric in Cincinnati, and got married to my mom, Linda Lee. And he announced the marriage. He eloped with Linda and announced it with a telegram to the family. To which, he said, "Hey, Linda Lee and I got married. Have a nice day," or whatever. And to which my grandfather said, "Who the heck is Linda?" And that's a true story. Dad and Mom settled in Shelbyville, Indiana, lived on a small farm, had 2 beautiful children, me and Laura. And then Todd came along. But as they say, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I'm up here, I can say whatever I want. So, Dad made a tough decision, at least in my mind. He made a tough decision in 1963. He moved our whole family from the friendly confines of central Indiana up to Toronto. So we lived in Toronto for a year in '63, and The next year, we moved to Pittsburgh, and we had a house just, I don't know, 3 miles from here, over in Whitehall. And Dad worked for Salem Furnace Company, had made a career of it, 35 years with the company. Came up through the ranks as an engineer, went to chief engineer, vice president, and ended up being president of the company in the mid-90s. And traveled all over the world. I took a look at his, some of his personal effects and looked at his passport, and Republic of China, South Africa, you know, Canada, Germany, all over the world. And I don't know anybody's traveled more than him, maybe Bruce, that's it. But through the years, Dad got involved in competitive bridge, played cards competitively, played against Omar Sharif one time. He loved horse racing and coaching baseball, became a very avid Steelers and Pirates and Penguins fan. Here, had season tickets to the Steelers for years, also to the Penguins for a few years when we first started. And we went along all the way, having fun. Like others, Dad experienced some heartache and tragedy along the way. He dealt with my mom's first bout with cancer at the age of 38. And 10 years later, she was stricken with multiple myeloma, and she died after seeing her first 4 grandchildren. And she was sadly taken in 1990. And he was just my age, 53. Give me a second. All right. Anyways, Dad found love again with Regina 3 years later. It was really nice. They got married and started having all the fun he'd been missing out on for, I don't know, 7 or 10 years while my mom was sick. And they traveled all over the world. They went to dinner. They had fun. They were just a blast to be around. They just had a blast. Unfortunately, cancer took Regina from Dad too soon as well in 2007. This week would have marked Dad and Regina's 20th wedding anniversary. So, anyways, as I've been thinking about my dad the last few days, I found myself jotting down, excuse me for reading so much, it's just easier for me. But I found myself jotting down a few words, the things that my dad really loved and liked. He loved his wives. He loved Linda Lee. He loved Regina. He loved handicapping the horses. A lot. He loved shoes. Good shoes. He really liked the Steelers, the Pirates, and the Penguins. He loved cooking steaks on the grill, chipping golf balls in the backyard. He loved the Kentucky Derby and the Breeders' Cup. That was like Christmas morning for him. Yeah, I mean, all the time. He loved handicapping the races. A cold beer on the back porch. Playing the horse on the basketball court with me and my buddies. Visiting family in Indiana, including every aunt and uncle I ever knew or didn't know. We went to Aunt Susie's house, and went to Denzel's house, and went to Evelyn, or I don't know. We went to John A., and we always showed up unannounced, and they would feed us some inedible cookie. And anybody that's been to Susie's house knows exactly what I'm talking about. Dad loved to tease everybody. He loved bragging about his grandkids. He loved colony sauce. Anybody's had colony sauce knows that Dad's a big fan. He loved coaching baseball. I think one of his favorite things was entertaining family in Pittsburgh. As people here come in from out of town, you're going to be familiar with these places. The Strip District, the Company Box, Salem's Company Box at Three River Stadium, the Incline, Mount Washington. Those were all fun things. He loved sled riding. He loved bragging about his good looks. So he would tell my friends and I when we were in high school, he said, when I was your age, I'd broken 12 hearts. And he said it all the time. Where's Huck Murray? He knows that. I'd broken 12 hearts by the time I was your age. And my dad was he loved to play games. So playing yard jarts, anybody that's done that will know my dad loved jarts, baseball, football, street hockey, pool, frisbee, golf. I'm not very good at Facebook, but I posted a note that my dad had died. And I got a note from a guy that was my neighbor across the street from me. I haven't talked to this guy in 38 years. He sends me a note. He said, it was Bill Hilliard. Huck will know him. Guy across the street, he says, "Hey, sorry for your loss." He says, "I always considered your dad the cool dad." And I thought that was really insightful, and I tried to think, why would a neighbor kid think my dad was a cool dad? And the thing I could come up with is that my dad was the only guy in the neighborhood that would come out and play every game with every one of us. If we were playing street hockey, he would come out and play basketball, baseball. He just did it all. He was always there playing games, and if I had my buddies over, he'd be the first one downstairs challenging us to play pool or whatever. It was a lot of fun. He was a pretty good guy that way. His unspoken motto was, "Don't sweat the small stuff." And I wish I was more like him. Cindy said, my wife said with her outside voice, "So do we." He said, "Don't sweat the small stuff." And I gave Dad an opportunity to put that motto to the test when I was in high school. And I had decided to go swimming after hours at the local swimming pool, which was next door to the police station. And long story short, it was a great night. Huck got away, and I did not get away. So the police called my parents, and my mom took the call. "Hey, we're the police, and we've got your son up here." And she was mortified and got my dad on the phone. The other guy that got caught was Kevin Leslie, who happened to be the son of a preacher here in town. His dad got there first. He opens up the door, looks in, he looks at me and said, basically gave me those eyes, the stink eyes. "This is your fault. You did this. You ruined my beautiful son." And he wouldn't talk to me, and Kevin got grounded for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And my dad came in, and after that, and I'm sitting in this chair, I was just so sad, that I got caught. Not so sad when we went swimming. And he looked in, and he says, "I'm here to pick up my dumb butt son." And I thought, man, he's the coolest dad. Because I walked out, and he didn't sweat. It was, to him, I don't think he thought of it as, my kid broke the law. I didn't slash a tire, I didn't steal anything, I didn't get in a big fight or anything. I was just swimming with my buddies, and I just happened to not be as fast a runner as he. So, anyways, all he said was, "That's a pretty expensive swim." And I said, "I don't think so." He says, "Why is that?" I said, "Because the Justice of the Peace here in town was Phil Mellegrain, was his son, and he was with us." I said, "We're not going to get fined at all." So, anyways, I would say my dad, and it was interesting, as I talked to people he worked with, I always consider my dad a person with zero pretense. He never judged people. He judged people on their character, really, not on their title or the size of their wallet or where they lived. And I just think that that's really a product of his upbringing. My dad met a lot of folks over the years that were pretty big shots, from Barney Palmer, Michael Keaton, the Batman, and I think he asked Michael Keaton to go get me a beer, just like Uncle Ed did. He was very good with all kind of people. People he worked with said that's exactly the way he was. He was a very genuine man, and just got along with everybody. I was telling my buddy Mark Poljak, where's Mark at? He's not here, maybe. Anyways, Mark worked for a guy in town, one of the richest guys in Pittsburgh. It was the Hillman Corporation. And Todd played baseball with a guy, Eddie Greffenstedt. His dad, Carl, was the CEO and one of the richest guys in Pittsburgh. And so they go to see Todd play baseball, or Todd, my dad and I. My dad, of course, had a little cooler with Busch beer in it. And we went off up to the side, and all my dad knew was that Carl Greffenstedt was just Eddie's dad. He said, "Hey, Carl, come on up here." Carl had been drinking champagne every day, but he and my dad were drinking Busch beer. He was just an everyday guy, I look at my dad, I think of a simple, down-to-earth, genuine good guy with a really strong family foundation and humble but deep Indiana roots. I think he loved us all, and we loved him right back. So, rest in peace. Big up. Good job, Barry.